Hello, my lovely anatomist and physiologist, Michele Glass here. And our conversation for this video is all about how bone is made. There are, remember, two different types of bone formation, and we're focusing here obviously on intramembranous ossification. So let's break down our word. So intra prefix means within. And then, of course, this is talking about membranous tissue. So in this case, we're going to see it's beginning with what's called mesenchymal tissue. And the significance of the mesenchymal means undifferentiated. Undifferentiated is one of those words that we're going to use quite a lot in the sciences. And what it really means here is it's not designated. So it can basically become any sort of tissue in the body at this point in its development. And then ossification means, I'm going to call this convert to bone. Or you could say maybe form bone. So either term there that you want to use. With intramembranous ossification, we'll see that this is sort of the uncommon type of bone formation. So we'll see this in flat bones of the skull. So flat bones of the skull, meaning both your cranial bones as well as the flat bones of the face and clavicle. And that's it. So that means every other bone in the body is formed through the second type of ossification, which is called endochondral. So I'll get into that in the next video. Okay, so let's kind of let's write this out into steps. So let's start with our mesenchymal cells are going to gather, so group together, and they begin to differentiate. So if a mesenchymal tissue means undifferentiated, it's not designated yet, we see that at the beginning of this process, they start to kind of sign up, if you want to say it like that, sign up for a particular job. What we see next happening is we're getting the formation then of capillaries, and we're getting the formation of osteogenic cells. So when we say that the mesenchymal cells gather and differentiate, this is how they're differentiating. They're becoming capillaries and they're becoming osteogenic cells. Now let's just remind ourselves that the osteogenic cell is our stem cell. So we know from our previous discussion that an osteogenic cell is going to give rise to osteoblasts. And we know that osteoblasts, anything with that blast ending is making something. And so if we break down the word here, osteoblast, bone making would be the literal translation. And so these osteoblasts come together and form a cluster. And we're going to call that cluster the primary, it's not called primary, it's just simply called ossification center. So this is like headquarters, if you will, for bone formation in this particular tissue. At the ossification center, we see that the osteoblasts are going to secrete osteoid. Osteoid, remember, is that beginning bony matrix. So it's the secretion of collagen fibers. It's that beginning laying down the hydroxyapatite crystals. So osteoid is a precursor to bone. And then once those osteoblasts are trapped in the calcified, so that means we've laid down the calcium phosphate, calcium carbonate, the hard stuff of that hydroxyapatite crystal. So once they're trapped in calcified, let me write that more clearly, calcified osteoid, essentially then we have bone. Calcified osteoid is essentially bone. So now they're going to be called osteocytes. Remember that an osteoblast is the cell that's making the bone, and once you have bone, the cell changes its job and changes its name, and it's now called an osteocyte. And so what we see then is we end up with spongy bone around capillaries. And then the surface, we get the periosteum formed. Remember here we're making a flat bone, so we're actually making that compact bone, spongy bone, compact bone sandwich with the periosteum wrapper. And then the periosteum is going to be important in helping to create the compact bone that is on the outside. Let's take a look at a diagram from our textbook, from the OpenStax Anatomy and Physiology textbook. So you want to start up here in the top left corner of the screen. And what we can see is our mesenchymal cells, which are the undifferentiated, that's the intramembranous part of our name. We see collagen fibers are present there. And then we see that those cells have clustered together, differentiated into the osteogenic cell, forming that ossification center. And we're seeing that it's those cells in the ossification center, those osteoblast cells, that are making it the osteoid. And so then we start to see that osteoid is becoming calcified. So once it's calcified, we call that a new bone matrix. And so we see that the osteocyte is going to be located in the new bone, still surrounded by the osteoblast, which is still actively secreting and making osteoid. As we go to the next picture, we can see that picture of our trabeculae or our spongy bone, which is circling or creating space for those blood vessels. So the blood vessels here are trapped in the spongy bone. We see that the mesenchyme on the outside is forming the periosteum, which ultimately then is going to help, in this case, give rise to compact bone. So that we're getting the picture of our flat bone where we have a compact bone, spongy bone, compact bone sandwich wrapped up in that periosteum. All right, stay tuned for intramembranous ossification. And as always, take care of yourselves. Excuse me, stay tuned for endochondral ossification. And as always, stay tuned. I messed that up completely. So catch you on the flip side.